I have 9 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the King County Finance and Budget Committee meeting Wednesday, August 25th, 2021. We have roll call, please.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Ford, Martin,
Martin here.
Sanchez,
Sanchez here.
Sturgis, Pepe,
Pepe here.
Herold, Depro,
Shepro here.
Berman.
Berman here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. We have no minutes this morning. We'll have those next month. There are no registered speakers. Is there anyone that online that would like to speak?
Here's the news at 9. We have 78 degrees, the current reading in downtown Chicago.
Is Shepro,
Shepro need to be muted.
yeah, you should be.
In favor?
Please report, Mr. Kilborn.
And according to Pentagon data, more than 800,000.
Good morning.
Morning.
My report has been included with your packet. There is a new law in the state that was passed and signed that will allow counties to use a higher percentage of commercial paper with our investments. Myself and Carolyn have looked at that and met with at least one broker to discuss how to expand our use of commercial paper under this new law.
Any questions of?
Just one.
Yes. Oh,
Yes, Mr. Kilborn, I wanted to thank you once again for redoing that chart. You got it exactly the way I had hoped we could get it. And so I thank you for that. There was only one question I had. I did the calculations myself just to go over those because I kind of like to play with numbers. And I think the demand and investment combined return of 0.48, 48 basis points might be off a little bit. I came up with 0.39. I was wondering if you could tell me how you came up with that figure.
Okay, I will get back to you on that and get you, that should be the answer. And I'll get back to Carolyn who puts those numbers down and confirm that answer.
Yeah, I just, I went through the calculations. I came up with 0.39 or 39 basis points, which is a little less than 0.4% combined for both. And I was just wondering if maybe I had done something wrong or if your calculation was correct. So
I'll confirm our calculation and then get back with you to see how you did yours to see what the difference is.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
And that was combined, the investment and the demand accounts?
Correct. The investment was 0.65 and the demand was 0.07.
Okay, I'll get back with you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Any other comments? Finance Director report, Mr. Honzek.
Good morning, everyone. I have submitted my report and emailed it to you early this morning, so I'm sorry if that it was not included in the packet. Hopefully you have it now. As always, we've included the budget versus actual reports that are through year-to-date July. I've included some comments on the variances on the first few pages of my report. So I'll not go over those. Basically, there's really nothing to be concerned about. Everything is normal or can be explained or might require a budget adjustment at year end. The shared and direct state tax revenue update, we're continuing to see improvements. Overall, we're $6.2 million ahead of where we would have been according to budget. And of course, the budget was based on very conservative figures, not anticipating the pandemic, the recovery from the pandemic to occur as quickly as it did. Compared to last year, we're also almost $4.6 million ahead of where we were at last year at this time. And then I've included also, just to see in the graphical format, the improvement of sales tax revenue. So you can see that it's continued to improve as we progress through the year. I do have some good news regarding the county cannabis tax. We have received our first payment, and contrary to what we were told, I did receive it in a separate payment. So we do know exactly how much we received. Again, we're cautioned not to speak of it publicly because of the confidential nature of this tax. But I do know what the amount is, and just confirming that we did receive it. And it's actually very close to what we had estimated. The health insurance, as of August 20th.
Mr. Onsick, excuse me, before you go on, we've got a lot of board members here, including myself, who are going, could you give us a hint?
It was close to expectations, so if you knew it was budgeted, you would know.
Can you give us a range from $1 to maybe 10?
Well, let me just, okay. What I can tell you is that I've included approximately $1 million in our sales tax budget for next year to accommodate it. But I can, that's off the top of my head. So it's very close to that.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Question for Mr. Onsick,
Yes.
follow up. Can you share that on a one-on-one basis with board members?
I think so. I think possibly I'll need to double check with state's attorney, but I believe that certainly the board members individually could know the exact amount. So I'd be happy to do that. But I do want to double check with
Sure.
the attorney just to know if there's something specific how it should be phrased. And I have not had a chance to do that yet.
Well, thank you for a upbeat report in beginning.
Yes. Okay, for health insurance, then we've roughly year to date as of August 20th, this is fiscal year to date, we're approximately $1 million ahead of expenses in terms of what's been collected by the county's contribution and the employee's contribution. But as always, I try to clarify by stating this does not include the accrued expenses, which are only factored in at the end of the year. But the fact that we're $1 million ahead, trending ahead is positive news, certainly. And we have approximately $7 million of cash on hand in the health insurance fund. The American Rescue Plan Fund, as you'll see at the committee meeting, the next committee meeting following finance committee meeting, I will be recommending that the county board authorize $4.1 million of the $7.4 million that had been approved for revenue recoupment to allocate to the special revenue funds in accordance with the share of lost revenue that they experienced. And so this, in fact, would actually be using the revenue recoupment to actually recoup lost revenue in those special revenue funds. And this would enable to make them closer to being whole as a result of the lost revenue they experienced from the pandemic for 2020. So this will enable them to have enough fund balance to continue on as they normally or close to normally would have. In addition to that, there's about $1 million of COVID-related expenses that were already had been approved by KEB as being eligible for reimbursement as COVID-related expenses from the CARES Act fund, but our funds were completely exhausted. And so at this point, then the next place that we can obtain reimbursement would be the American Rescue Plan Fund. And so I have that also as a resolution for that committee. The special reserve fund balance, there's approximately $7.9 million remaining of the payroll reimbursement savings from last year. And then there's still the $125,000 that had been reserved for the JJC build out, and the $329 that, I'm sorry, $320,000 that is sitting in there that had been placed on reserve for the help pay for the biennial election next year. The general fund contingency balance is roughly about the same as it was last month. Capital funds, 26% expended for building management, 38% for information technology, and 71% for capital. I wanted to take just a few moments to talk about the Series 2013 bond refunding opportunity. So again, assuming that interest rates will remain at a reasonable level at the time of the refunding, which would occur roughly the end of October, we may be able to save at least $300,000 by refunding those bonds, while at the same time keeping the debt service schedule the same, meaning that the last payment would still be December 15th, 2024, just as it is now. And so the state's attorney's office, bond counsel, or financial advisor, they've all been assisting me in evaluating the options. And it does appear that the general obligation refunding bonds using an alternate revenue source and the state income tax, excuse me. I'm sorry, I thought there was a question. The alternate revenue source would be the county share of state income tax revenue, just as is currently the case for the existing 2013 bonds. So it'd be exactly the same, except the bonds would be sold at a lower interest rate. It's also been determined that selling the bonds in a private placement setting would yield more savings than issuing the bonds publicly. And that's partly because we would have a lower cost of issuance. And so as a result of that, Spear Financial, our financial advisor, assisted me in issuing an RFQ for a placement agent. And after reviewing those responses, we're recommending that Piper Sandler be appointed as a placement agent. So if all goes well, the bonds could be sold by the end of October. And there's a bond ordinance and a resolution regarding the appointment of the placement agent on the agenda. And so we can address any questions at that point. And we do have the bond counsel, Kyle Harding, and the representative from Spear, our financial advisor from Spear Financial, Dan Forbes, is also available to answer questions. The purchasing report, there are a series of bids and RFPs that were started during the month of July. We have the Church Molitor Drainage Project, real estate brokerage services for building management, water management plan for environmental and water resources, professional management services for the ARP Act Fund, for the state's attorney's office and county board. We have the grant project manager for the ARP Act Fund. HVAC plumbing mechanicals, HVAC building automation system, Ogden Gardens water storage tank, drainage consultant for environmental and water resources, and judicial center electrical repairs. So there's 5 bids, 2 requests for proposals, and 1 request for qualification. We're at various stages. There were no quote savings in July, but we do have some estimated bid savings, which total $130,000 for the month of July. And year to date, they're at $334,000. That concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes.
Surges.
Surges,
Hey,
sir.
hey, Joe, I noticed in your report for the coronavirus relief fund, we
Yes,
said it was just over 98% expended.
yes.
Is that mean it's spoken for and at 100%, we just haven't spent it? Or we don't anticipate spending the entire thing?
Well, okay, I suppose that, I'm sorry, I should have added clarification. The 98% includes the budget that we had added to the coronavirus relief fund for interest revenue. And so the actual dollars that we received from the federal government have been fully expended. What's remaining would be the interest revenue, and that interest revenue is going to be used to pay for any remaining administrative expenses to close out the fund. So that's what remains, is actually the interest revenue.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Any other questions?
We're going to defer discussion on the bonds until we get to that point.
Who's speaking?
Yes.
Shepro, sorry.
Yes, I mean, I'd be happy to answer a question now if you'd like.
Mine was really quick. I just wanted to know the 300,000, Joe, is that total savings over the remaining life of the bonds, or is that annualized?
Oh, it's the total savings. So that's the savings and interest expense less the cost of issuance expense. So it's like the net savings.
Thank you.
Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Leonard speaking. Joe, I also wanted to mention too, with the bond refunding, the 300,000 is over the, as you said, over the life of the remaining years on the bond. But with the private placement, I think that's a nice conservative estimate, the 300,000. I think it might be higher than that. So thank you once again for handling that. It's saving the county hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes, thank you.
Any other comment? Thank you, Mr. Honzek. Moving on. Auditors report. Ms. Wegland.
Good morning. Our report has been placed on file and is in your packet. I can address any questions that maybe there are.
Any questions on?
I have one, please. The risk assessment has been shared with us. And I was wondering if there is recommendation then from the auditor to what next steps we are to mitigate any risk assessments. Is she working with those departments?
So the risk assessment is actually going to be utilized for us to create our audits for the upcoming year. We can certainly take into account anything that the board would like us to audit, but we will just be utilizing that to form our audits going forward.
But as far as a management perspective, are you going to make recommendations on how we can make sure that our risk assessment is not high or moderate, it's low, to improve our own management?
It's mainly more of a just informational tool. As you're familiar with in the county, a good portion of our higher risk assessment areas are elected officials. And with internal controls, they get to operate their offices however they see fit. And mainly with this risk assessment, the two main criteria that you'll see is budget and employee count. And that's just going to be how it is in those offices. So on paper, they look like they're high risk, but in reality, that's how they have to function.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any questions, any other questions? We now have a presentation been requested. Please.
Good morning, Jamie Mosser, your King County State's Attorney. We have asked to have the opportunity to come before all of you today to talk about some research that we have done in regards to the financial possibilities that the Kane County Board has to decide upon in regards to the budget. One of the things that I like to say as a part of what I do as a leader in this county is when I notice that there is a problem or we come and we ask for something, I like to come with a solution also. I don't want to just say that we need something and then rely on everyone else to come up with a solution for it. Now, I've been lucky that since I've taken office on December 1st, I've had some fantastic judicial partners. And you'll notice that we have our sheriff here, we have our chief judge, we have our public defender here, because we have been working together to see how we can make our system better for everyone here in King County. And as you saw yesterday, that there were a lot of needs that were identified in all of our departments, including trying to increase the income of the people who work in our offices so that we retain the fantastic people who have chosen to make public service their job. And also additional positions that need to be created based on the needs, such as with our mental health, addiction issues, and the lack of resources that has only been exacerbated by COVID. With all of that, obviously comes the question, where will this money come from? And so today I'm going to introduce Vince Coyle. He's one of our assistant state's attorneys. I know that he's come and he's presented to you before. He spent a significant amount of time in our office at the criminal division, and now he's one of our civil attorneys. He comes with a great background because he understands that when we are looking to expand in our criminal division because of cases that are happening, not only from the state's attorney level, from the judge level, the sheriff's department, and the public defender's office, it's because that's a need that we need. In addition to that, our jobs are purely statutory. We have to respond when criminal activity happens. There's no question about that. So with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Vince, who has done a significant amount of research into alternative potential funding sources that we can look at as a board to be able to properly fund the judicial and public safety portion of our county so that our focus is always on doing better for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I am going to go through a few different alternative funding sources in this presentation, but before I get to that, and I'm going to go over some of the costs generally that are going along with the statutory mandates that you did hear about regarding the Safety Act that's coming, and then get into the different sources. So with the Safety Act, there was a presentation that was put on by all the judicial partners on how this is going to affect Kane County. Two of the highlights really is the elimination of the cash bail system. And so there is going to be these extensive hearings that are going to take place when that system goes into place. And due to the anticipated length and complexity of the detention hearing, during the presentation, a dedicated judge will be needed exclusively to handle those. And it's not going to be just in the morning anymore. It'll probably be an all day, every day hearing that's going to need to be taken place. And then with that additional judge to handle those is going to be the dedicated courtroom and staff to also handle those additional responsibilities. And then also in that same presentation that was put on at the Judicial and Public Safety Committee, this new hearing that's going to take place requires additional responsibilities from both the state's attorney's office and the public defender's office in order to get ready. These are not going to be bond call hearings that can take place in a matter of minutes anymore. So additional attorneys will need to be required in order to get ready for that. Because now what the statute mandates is that the state's attorney's office will have to file verified petitions. These can be considered quasi suppression hearings. And then additional requirements are put on the state's attorney's office to tender discovery to the defense attorney, which at the bond call hearing, 99% of the time is the public defender's office. And so they're going to also need additional attorneys to an investigator to get ready for those types of hearings, to review all this paperwork and present correct and actual factual information to the judges that sit during these hearings. So you can see that this the Safety Act is going to affect and become mandatory requirements on all the judicial partners. And then also another highlight from that act is that all officers are going to need to have body worn cameras, and that is going to have a rippling effect. Certainly the sheriff's office is going to need to have every officer have body worn cameras, but every trooper, every municipality, all those officers are going to need to have body worn cameras. And those videos can be later used at hearings and trials and sentencings. And that's going to come with extra costs as well, because there are ethical obligations that come with these videos that the state's attorney's office needs to review all of them, needs to tender all of them to the public defender's office, and they also will have to review all of them. So it's going to require a lot more time. These videos, in my experience in the past, have just been increasing over time. There's more departments that are having them, and now it's going to be required that all have them. And when you have a call, you could have 4 or 5 officers show up, and all 4 or 5 show different angles of the incident that occurs, and all 4 or 5 of those videos need to be reviewed, and they go on for hours. So it is a pretty big undertaking. But let's not also forget that, and I believe the presentation has from the judicial and public safety is that with these additional attorneys, like the judicial partners, a lot of the departments are at capacity when it comes to office space. And then when you're talking about all that video, it takes a large amount of electronic storage, which costs a lot of money as well. Court services, I know the state is maybe just last week came down with directives, and they might be the best, but certainly this will affect when there's pretrial monitoring going on, how their department will have to adjust to the new Safety Act as well. The clerk will need additional staff if more courtrooms are required to handle the hearings that are required through the Safety Act, as well as because it's going to a no cash bail system, all those fees that the clerk had before, they will not be receiving anymore. And then the sheriff, any increased training that the Safety Act requires. And then also one of the things is it requires them to have a duty to respond. And I believe in the presentation, the sheriff's office would like to have AEDs in every one of their squads. So, and then also there's going to be future trailer bills that could affect the changes of cost. So that's just a general recap of what the effects of the Safety Act, on top of all the budget presentations you've already heard of the current status of all the judicial partners. And in that committee, the question was asked, how do we handle these costs on from year to year basis? And one of the solutions or suggestions was to somehow set aside 8 to 10 million a year. So I want to go through a few different alternative solutions or things that we can talk about. And this is just to start the discussion and start to look at some of these, a few different things. And so the 3 different things that I'll talk about are the Regional Transportation Authority Tax, the Special County Retailers Occupation Tax for public safety, Kane County Cannabis Retailers Occupation Tax. And I will note now that, and when I go over number 2, it does, that tax can go to multiple different things, which I will get into. So starting out with the Regional Transportation Authority tax, it's also known as the RTA tax. It's a tax that's imposed on all general merchandise that's sold in the metropolitan area. And the eligible uses for this tax are to generally fund public safety and public transportation. That's what the act allows for. And you can see how it's divided under the eligible uses between the two of them. And note that for transportation, it does fund operating capital, right-of-way, construction, and maintenance costs of other transportation purposes, including road, bridge, public safety, and transit purposes. We did have a chance to have a discussion with transportation, and it's my understanding that a lot of this is used for their capital costs at transportation. And so there is a financial policy that is put in place in Kane County on how this RTA tax is split up. And in that financial policy, you can see how it is divided. It's 10% goes to the general fund to fund operating costs of public safety, 9% used for capital projects relating to the promotion of public safety, 6% to technology. So it's about 25% going to items dealing with public safety, and then 75% goes to transportation, which is my understanding it goes to their capital costs. So that's kind of how it's divided up currently. And just to give you an idea, here are the numbers from the amended budget. This is taken from the budget report, performance report from June 30th of this year. So the prior year total, you can see the numbers there. The total was about 17 million. And then the amended budget, you could see how those percentages add up to the 16 million total. What I was also able to do is go to the Illinois Department of Revenue and look at how the disbursements are actually coming in over the past 12 months. So starting back from July of 2020 all the way to June of this year, those are the monthly disbursements that Kane County is getting from the Illinois Department of Revenue. And so how this tax works is all the sales tax, the certain percentages goes to the Illinois Department of Revenue, and then they figure out how much Kane County gets, and then they give Kane County that money. And so the past 12 months, the total is 18 million, just over that. So if there are adjustments made to this policy, this would be something that the board would have to consider. And this is not us coming to the board and saying, oh, we should just take money from transportation and put it into public safety. This presentation is really just to start the discussion of how the money for the entire county, how we can really utilize and take advantage of everything that we can to increase everyone in Kane County to fund all the costs that are coming. So with that, if there was an adjustment made to the RTA tax, one of the things that the board could also look at is the motor fuel local option tax, which is also known as the county motor fuel tax. And this is revenue that's derived from all gasoline that is sold here in Kane County. And it's based on gallons that are sold. The current tax rate is 4.1 cents per gallon sold. And the eligible uses for the county motor fuel tax are pretty much kind of the same thing that is eligible for the RTA. They're very similar, and you can see them on the slide there. So I was also able to get from the disbursements on the county motor fuel tax over the past 12 months. And this is also from the Illinois Department of Revenue. You can see that the total past 12 months is 8 million, a little over that. The budget for 2021 was 8.97 million for the county motor fuel tax. And so if you look at the statute regarding the county motor fuel tax, it allows Kane County to increase this tax from 4 cents to 8 cents per gallon of motor fuel sold. That's the statute that's listed. DuPage County has already taken advantage of this, and they currently are at the 8 cents per gallon of motor fuel sold. And so if you were to apply that to the past 12 months, you would actually see a total amount of 16,392,000. So if any adjustments are made to the RTA sales tax, this is also something that could help transportation and their capital costs that they need to cover, because transportation is certainly very important, and they need to be involved in this discussion as well.
That's Shepro question. Is that 16 million additional or 16 million total?
Total. That's total. That's just if you, over the past 12 months, taken advantage. One of the things is that the county motor fuel tax should not be confused with the motor fuel tax. And so the motor fuel tax is a little bit different. That's a tax that is done throughout the entire state. And so how that occurs is all the gallons that are pumped throughout the state, Department of Revenue collects that as well, and each county gets a certain percentage. Now, that tax did increase from 19 to 38 cents per gallon. So the King County is receiving, besides the counter motor fuel tax, also the motor fuel tax that is done throughout the entire state. And that tax goes through a whole tree of different items, but they're two different types of taxes that we're receiving. And just to give a quick glimpse as to what we're receiving, this was from our comprehensive report here in Kane County, the original budget versus the actual note that we did receive some grants. And this is just the county motor fuel tax.
If I may, a quick question.
Yes.
The county motor fuel tax, we can do that internally and not have to go out to the public to ask for permission?
Correct. Correct. It could be done by ordinance or resolution. Yeah. So the second thing that I want to talk about is the special counties retailers occupation tax for public safety. Now, as I title it for public safety, but it can be for many different things. So, as an alternative source for the judicial partners with all the costs that are coming, I'm going to aim this presentation towards that. And this is a tax that's done on all tangible personal property that's sold in Kane County. Kane County is currently not taking advantage of this tax. And it goes to many different things. Like I said before, public safety, public facilities, mental health, substance abuse, and transportation. This tax can only be increased by 0.25 quarter% increments at a time, and it has to have a referendum. So if this is something that this board wants to have a further discussion about, to keep in mind, generally what would need to happen is that a resolution would need to be passed 79 days prior to the next primary election. So that would be, you're kind of looking at June of 2022 when this referendum would actually go on the ballot. So 79 days before, this board would have to have some sort of resolution passed for it to go to the clerk. Yes.
Could it go into the November election?
I don't believe so. So it would have to be a general or a primary. It can't go into any special elections.
No, the November.
The
next year.
general
Oh, yes,
November
yes.
election.
It could, yes.
All right, good.
Yes. Lost my place.
Question, Shepro. Vince, do you know about other counties that have implemented this?
Yes, and I am going to get to that with the next slide. So
Very good.
here's a list of all the counties that are currently taking advantage of this tax. So as you can see, it's outlined, all the counties there, all the different types. So you got public safety, public facility, mental health, substance abuse, transportation. What you should note is that every county that is taking advantage of this tax is using it for public safety. You could see different counties, in addition to public safety, are taking advantage of it for different items as well, such as public facility and transportation. And I believe there's one more slide. Winnebago is also using it for mental health. So with these different counties, it also has a different amounts or percentage of the tax that they are using. What I was able to do is go to the Illinois Department of Revenue. I just tried to pull different counties that I thought were of note. There on the right. It has their rate, and then it has their prior 12-month total that they received from this tax. So Peoria, note that their rate is at 50.5, but they received 8 million. Kendall is currently taking advantage of this. Theirs is at 1%, and they received a total of 11 million. Champaign is at 0.25. They received a little over 4. We are bigger than Champaign County. I believe we're about the 5th biggest county in the state of Illinois. And the number of counties that are taking advantage of this is 40 counties. And I believe that's about a little over 100 counties in the state total. So quite a significant amount of counties are taking advantage of this. So yes.
Question,
Vincent
Shepro?
Sturgis here. Based on the slide that you just showed, how, and I may have just missed this, how much are you asking in comparison?
So how much are we asking?
Recommending.
So what we would have to do is we can only do it in 0.25 increments. So to start
0
it.
to 0.25.
So correct.
Got it.
Yep. And so that's why I kind of pulled these different counties here, and Champaign County is taking advantage of the 0.25, and that's the amount that they received over the past 12 months.
Question, Shepro? So does that mean Winnebago had to do 6 referendums to get to 1.5%?
Yes.
Wow.
I believe
Okay.
that's correct. And I can certainly research that too, but that's my understanding.
Leonard?
Mr. Chairman Leonard, question with respect to this tax, if we would implement it, since we're bigger than Champaign County, and we would go from 0 to 0.25, we're looking at, just in ballpark figures, maybe 5 million, a little more than $5 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be more, and that's kind
Right.
of why I put it there.
And this would have to be passed through referendum, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But could we pass it at, let's say, 1%, but only have it at 0.25 and then raise it? Would that be a possibility?
That is a good question. I know I believe your referendum would still have to be put in place for every increment.
For the
change.
maximum that we would consider.
If your resolution had a total not exceeding 1%, I think you could do that, but I can look into that further.
Okay.
So excuse me, what Madam Chair is asking there, I think, is can we start out at higher than 0.25% on the referendum? And what you're saying is overall, we could say ultimately we want to get to 1% or 1.5, but it would be in 0.25 increments. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Well, Shepro, I thought you were saying you were going to have to look into that. You aren't saying it today, or are you?
Right. I would have to double check that, but I do know the statute specifically says you can only increase it by 0.25. All right. Any other
Well-
questions? Okay. And then last, King County Cannabis Retailers Occupation Tax, as you heard earlier, that we now have started receiving tax revenues regarding this. The rates that we can tax this at are up there with the incorporated not to exceed 3% and unincorporated not to exceed 3.75. That revenue goes right into the general fund. So that can be spent however this board wishes. And what I wanted to bring to your attention, not only is that this is an added revenue that King County is seeing, but this is a growing industry, and the trend seems like that you as King County will start receiving significant amounts as this trend continues. So I was able to just research this a little bit. In the first quarter of 2021, it was being reported that the tax revenues for cannabis sales exceeded those of liquor, which is pretty significant. It's different. That's the first time that that's ever happened. This is the sales for cannabis throughout the state of Illinois. This is not King County, but it just is to show you the trend of what's kind of going on. And if this trend continues for the year 2021, the state of Illinois will see probably $1 billion in sales as it relates to cannabis. And what should be noted is this is coming from the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, not the Illinois Department of Revenue. So these amounts do not include the taxes. And as there was discussion earlier, there are some privacy issues with reporting how much tax revenue each county is getting. So, yes, question.
Serge is here. Vincent, first off, thank you for the hard work. We appreciate it. In looking at the different options of that you've brought, tacking on an extra gas tax on top of the 38 cents that was added may not be the most popular thing. Going to a referendum, you know what, you're really, it's up to the taxpayers, the constituents, what they want to do. But this cannabis thing, you know what, I unless I'm mistaken, when we had our very lively discussions, not only the first year, but in the second year of how we were going to spend this, I don't think we earmarked that money. And I think this would be a great place for that. But the point of speaking, and my question is, for my fellow commissioners, there was a huge debate at the time as to the viability or the marketability of our tax rate versus other county tax rates, and how somebody may choose to open their cannabis facility sales in that county rather than our county, because I think it might bear fruit to look at that now that we're a year or 18 or 24 months down the road to say, does that matter at all? Are people really making their decision based on a tax rate for the sales tax, or are they really looking where the market is being driven? And am I saying that properly?
I think so. And
we were afraid. We suppressed it a little bit, because we didn't want to be uncompetitive.
sure.
Well, if we're past that now, can we revisit that, or should we, or are we at the maximum? I don't know the answer.
We're at 0.75% is all we can
Yeah, we're the max.
increase.
We're at the maximum now?
We're at 3.75 is a max.
Then my soliloquy means nothing. I retract. Thank you.
Leonard?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Leonard asking a question or summarizing. If I could, Vincent, I'd just like to summarize briefly what you've presented here. Increasing the RTA tax from 4 cents to 8 cents could increase the revenues by about $8 million a year.
Well, what you need to take into effect too, and we had a great conversation with transportation, is there is, a trend going towards electric cars and that sort of thing. So you may see a trend of gas being pumped go down. So I don't want to say, yes, it's definitely going to be $8 million, but
Yeah, we're just using some suppositions here. I guess what I was trying to do is get to a combined total. And if we look at potentially as much as $8 million more in that area, and then we look at the retailer's occupational tax, if we charge 1/4%, and get that passed through referendum, that would generate approximately $5 million. And then we have the cannabis tax, which would generate approximately $1 million. So what you're basically informing us is there are opportunities to generate somewhere between $13 and $15 million of additional revenue. And in looking at the personnel request for the state's attorney, public defender, and judiciary, we're looking at about 45 people. And to me, that probably equates to about $4 million a year. So I think your presentation here is giving us an option of looking at taking some of those additional revenues to help offset the cost of the needs of our departments. And I think it's great that you've come up with these solutions, and I think they're reasonable. We may not use the full amount, even if we use a partial amount, and we only take a partial amount for your needs. We still have monies coming in there that will help offset that additional cost, which will probably be about 4 million or better a year.
Yes.
Okay.
Bill, on the
Mine.
Surges, on the marijuana,
Yes.
for the 1 million that was reported, what's the time period for that? Was that an annualized figure, or was that just a portion of a year?
So you would have to go to Joe Onzek.
Did
on
anybody
the
remember
actual-
what Joe just said?
I think that's an annualized just projection, and they never came up with an exact figure because of privacy things. Approximate, yes.
Approximately 1 year. Okay.
Keep in mind that we're certainly in the budget process, we're going to have other requirements. And so, the same revenue potential that we're looking at here has also been discussed for
And
needs in our general fund. Yes.
just to follow up, excuse me, just on the cannabis tax, because we passed that resolution in January or December or January, but the tax did not go through until April.
May, yeah, May was the first.
So we've missed the first quarter in unincorporated tax.
Right. So I just wondered, was that a projected amount or just the actual for that snapshot?
Well,
I didn't understand.
I think-
Nobody got that. I mean, the municipalities didn't get that until that date also.
Okay.
And it's a
Question,
future
Shepro?
projection.
Well, we just received the tax,
Yes.
because we did not have unincorporated tax available to us until April of this year. Because there was no tax at that point. You were still investigating. And then we raised our tax rate for municipal to the full amount in that same time frame.
Question, Shepro?
Bro.
Yeah, Bill, this is, I guess, for you. So the summary, the 8 million for the sales or for the RTA, the gas tax, was the 8 million additional, or would that be the total revenue then from that source?
Additional, because it would go from 4 cents, which is generating
Okay.
about 8 million right now,
So
to 8
that's-
cents, which would generate 16 million.
So that's an additional, and then obviously the 5 million of the sales tax would be new. And now the million, as I understand it, though, we've already adopted that at its maximum rate.
Correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
I have a question.
Martin, I'm sorry.
I think I recall years past when I was working with the judicial partners to arrive at the manner by which we'd handle the RTA sales tax, that there is a structural limitation on that if in fact we begin to trend too strongly away from directly supporting transportation, that we place the collection of that tax in jeopardy, or it's diminished. Is that the case or not the case, or am I?
So that's not my understanding. One of the considerations, obviously, that this board will have to consider if any changes to the RTA sales tax is done, though, is that transportation does have matching with state and federal funding. So any adjustments in the RTA sales tax, a discussion would need to be done with transportation so they can still be matching their funds. And so that's why the counter motor fuel tax, if that's increased, could assist in that way. But there is no specific limitation on how you want to allocate those percentages. That would be a policy decision.
Okay, I would like that confirmed though, because as few things as I recall, I seem to recall that fairly clearly.
Yeah, I did make some phone calls to different counties, and different counties do allocate it in different ways. So.
All right, and to Dale's point before, this is, everybody's looking at the same potential pot. So if to the degree we adjust these formulas, it's like squeezing the toothpaste. It's got to come out someplace.
Correct.
Thanks.
The one thing, if I may, we have to be aware, and Vince already mentioned that the trend line for motor fuel tax is going to go down within probably the next 5 to 10 years as electric cars continue to increase. Consumers buy electric cars. So we can't really count on that money to be sustained. And there may have to be a new model created for transportation as that goes forward, because as that tax goes down, so will their availability for match grant funds.
Yeah, and if I may just piggyback on that. And so if you look at these different options, the special retailer's occupation tax is kind of like a solution further down the road because you have to go to referendum. And certainly taking advantage of the county motor fuel tax would be more of a quicker solution to alleviate some of these costs. So it's obviously just a beginning discussion in all this. And certainly if you have any other research that you would like us to do, we can do.
Question, Shepro. First, a question about the cannabis tax, and notwithstanding Mr. Surges withdrawing his query, I suspect it still might be relevant with respect to choices yet to be made. So I guess I would still be interested in if our tax is higher than competitive with the surrounding counties, because obviously if there are, as I think we anticipate, there will eventually be more potential licensees. That still seems to me could be a relevant question in terms of future growth in that revenue source. And secondly, do we have information about referenda on the county sales tax that have been proposed and failed as opposed to those who have adopted?
For Kane County specifically or any?
No. I mean, I know we haven't done it, but I mean, you have a one, and by the way, I just, your presentation is so informative. I thank you for the work that went into it. You have the list of everybody who has adopted it. And frankly, looking at some of those counties, I'm personally astounded that a referendum passed, but I'm wondering what the track record is across the state of proposing and getting it and proposing it and not getting it.
That I don't know the exact answer to, and I can try to find that out.
Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vincent, one other thought that I have with respect to financing additional needs, and I do consider what the state's attorney, public defender, and judiciary needs as needs, not as wants. I think one other thing that we have to keep in mind, these are just suppositions, projections that could possibly happen. We may get some of that, we may get none of that or part of it. And if we take a percentage of that, like I was saying before, maybe $1 million or $2 million, if we do have appreciation in those areas, fine. We're still going to have to make up the other $1 million or $2 million. I would recommend and suggest that we look at our American Rescue money over a many year period to allocate money to the needs of the county first. And I think mental health, addiction, and domestic violence are much higher priorities for this county than anything else. So I would recommend that in the American Rescue Plan, we look at allocating some of that money, not for 1 year, but over a number of years to help with this increased need.
So if I can just respond to that just briefly. So the only issue with the American Rescue Plan funds is that it can't be used as any kind of like rainy day savings. So all the money that this county receives from the American Rescue Plan has to be allocated by the year 2024. So if you're sure, it can be allocated for short-term effects, but if you're wanting to be sustainable.
It's a very good point. I think what we're going to find, as we did with the Coronas Fund, is they may extend that too. It could be instead of 3 years, it could be 4 or 5, whatever it may be. I think there's a way that at least for the reasonable short period of time, we have other options to consider too, but we need to look at every option and find a way to handle these needs. Yes.
And if I may, going back to Mr. Shepro and Mr. Surgis's question about the tax rate for other counties, all counties that I'm aware of, Lake, DuPage certainly, Cook, have raised it, implemented their tax to the maximum amount allowed by law. So we are at equal to those other counties, not less than. And people are not going to drive 25 miles to save pennies on the dollar because of the cost of gas to buy their cannabis needs. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
it's just.
I agree.
You go to your neighborhood, you go to North Aurora, you go to Elgin, you go to Aurora, to locally,
Right.
which we welcome.
Comment, Shepro. I think the other thing that is a reality, whether it's actually true or not, is I hear all the time from people, well, you've got this huge amount of money from the federal government. Why would you need to ask us for a tax increase? And while there are obviously reasons why you don't want to try to link permanent programs to a temporary funding source, nevertheless, I think that's going to be a major issue in the minds of many of the voting public.
And if I may respond to that, this is Jamie Mosser. The huge amount of money that we received has to specifically be used, as Vince said, for things that are allowed under the American Recovery Plan Act. That's not a permanent solution. The crimes that we have in King County, unfortunately, are going to continue. We're going to be a lot more proactive in how we respond to them. And I've discussed that with the board before about how we're going to get out of our courtrooms and we're going to go into the community and try to do what we can to help our community. But the unfortunate nature is, because this is going to continue, domestic violence, abuse against our children, DUI cases, addiction issues, this is something we are always going to have to fund as a county so that we could be the safest community we can by being proactive and dealing with them in the best way possible. So my response to that is very similar. Unfortunately, crime doesn't go away. We're going to do what we can to make sure that we deal with it appropriately. As the sheriff and I have touted from the day that he took office to the day that I took office and forever, jail is not a solution, but we can be the solution for this.
My only point was not that that's not 100% true, is that we need, if we do go this route, we need people like you and the sheriff and all of us to make that point in the face of what is obviously a deep-seated feeling on the part of the public that they are taxed enough already.
Absolutely. I understand. And I also just enjoy arguing with you, Mr. Shepro. So
Mr. Chairman,
That's Bates.
I hope that we will let the ARPA money be handled by the ARPA committee, because this is going to be a very complicated process. And we're going to have to wait and see how that's going to work out. Thank you, Ms. Mosser, for your comments about, we can't start putting money into a rainy day fund. We can't start putting it into long-term salaries and things like that. This is an emergency fund that should be used properly and not for long-term salaries that will never go away. And I have a question for Ms. Mosser, please. So I think that you are putting programs in place that we are hoping will decrease our jail term, our incarceration. So does that mean that there's some hope that some of your attorneys will not be needed in the future?
yes, or that we can take the ones that we have and put them to areas that we need. Because as we have seen, different types of crimes fluctuate. And so sometimes we'll see an excessive need here, as we did for abuse and neglect, for example. What I think is going to happen as we create and implement programs like pre-arrest diversion, or we expand our current deferred prosecution programs, we're going to see that that caseload is changing in a way because we are getting people to resources or treatment quicker. So we have less of a recidivism rate. That then means that maybe we don't need as many drug prosecutors, but because abuse and neglect unfortunately continues, then we can shift people over, which ultimately means that we don't have to come back to the board to keep asking for additional attorneys because we can use them in better ways because we're being creative with our programming and more proactive.
May I ask one more question? With all this body cam footage, does every inch of that have to be reviewed, or just when there's a contested case that it applies?
So that's an excellent question, because there are some cases where we're not going to have a significant amount, and it may be an easier case, such as a retail theft, where the body of the crime actually happened before the police officers were even there. Ethically, we should look at every inch of it because there could be something that's exculpatory or something that shows that the person didn't do it. Maybe somebody said, you know, I saw somebody else do it. For our purposes and ethically, I would answer, yes, we have to look at every second of what's on there. The reality is we're not ever going to be able to do that. Even with the increases that we recommended in the presentation for attorneys, it doesn't mean that that's going to result in us looking at all of it, but it's going to keep us afloat essentially in terms of all the body cams coming in.
You know, we've got a really full agenda coming up.
I have, if I may,
Yes, Madam
just
Chair.
one more question, then, thank you. To Ms. Bates' point, would it be possible, because these are major expenses we're talking about for your department, judicial, could you develop a trend line for us, hypothetical trend line of the work that you're forecasting that you're going to be doing so that the court system is not going to be so stressed, and how you're going to potentially shift over the attorneys to different cost centers, if I could forecast that and give us that out for maybe the next 5 years, because we're talking about the ARPA fund for that purpose, and also initiating this retail's occupation tax growth and for the cannabis tax, as well as the potential gasoline tax. So we can figure out exactly what your forecasting is going to be 5 years out.
Yes, we can.
Could
do
we
that. We've
add the
been-
courts and the sheriff to those projections? Because obviously.
Absolutely. Would be the whole group.
We'll ask my cohorts to do that, yes.
You wouldn't mind.
And we can, because a lot of the models that we've been following have been instituted in different states with great success. So we've done a lot of research into what has worked and hasn't worked in different communities. So I think we can present something together.
Okay, very good.
I think we've had good discussion. Looking at our committee of the whole meetings that we've had and talked about each department and what the requirements are going to be and what they'd like to see. And from a budgeting standpoint, we've got a great deal to look at, as well as, you know, the judicial system. So there's a lot that goes into our discussion and where the revenue is going to come from. So, right. But as far as I think we've completed our discussion today. We need to move on with our agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well done. Good job.
Oh. Under new business, Resolution A, authorizing fiscal year 21 budget adjustment for business analysis.
Seconds.
Hey, Clint, before you guys leave really quick, item for discussion on this.
Okay.
We're hoping that the business analysis portion that Jamie and Human Resources is bringing forth is embraced by our cohort partners and given a fair shake, if you will. We are always in this situation where we want budget monies, yet we don't control those county-wide electeds. And this is really one of those opportunities where Vincent's model and the consultant that's come, if we can mend these all together and do this with open arms rather than, you know, this would really be a great opportunity.
Who's the cohort? Like Teresa Barrero?
That's a good point.
Penny? Okay.
Looking forward to it. Not only that, just on a side note, we're starting a strategic agenda
planning, it starts first September 2nd, Madam Chair and others, are involved in that, so it's just the timing is perfect, so. Amy and I will talk at it.
So between the chief judge, the state's attorney, the sheriff, we appreciate all, everybody's participation in this and should this pass, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't want them to leave the room without being able to grease the wheels a bit, so.
All right, we have a motion, moved by.
Moved by Ford, seconded by
Gordon,
Leonard.
seconded by. So we have discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez, Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe.
Tepe, yes.
Sanchez, yes.
Thank you.
Hey,
Berman,
Berman, yes.
thank you.
So
Item
necessary.
B, a resolution authorizing a budget adjustment for the Office of Emergency Management.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves.
Ford second.
Ford second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
Item C, a resolution establishing a special revenue fund 413, adopting a budget for the CDBG CV program, adding special revenue funds to an existing line of credit. Do we have a motion to approve?
Burgess moves.
Burgess moves. Leonard second.
Leonard seconds.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
Item D, a resolution authorizing an intergovernment agreement with the State of Illinois Department of Human Services and the Juvenile Justice Council grant.
Ford moves.
Leonard seconds.
Second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
Item E, a resolution authorizing contract extension of bottled water service.
Ford moves.
Ford moves.
Surges, second.
There's a second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Yes.
Passes.
And item F, a resolution authorizing contract extension for gasoline and diesel fuel.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves.
Ford seconds.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford, Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
Item G, a resolution approving a power purchase agreement and lease for solar energy with GRNE Solar Field 05 LLC. A motion? Martin. Martin moves.
Leonard seconds.
Leonard second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes, with explanation that we do not have all the facts in yet. However, on a leap of faith as requested by one of the board members, I am agreeing to move this forward with the understanding that on September 1st, there will be a meeting answering all our questions. And if those are not answered adequately, it will be sent back to Energy.
Was that a yes?
Thank you.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes.
Passes.
Item H, a resolution authorizing the Information Technology Department to participate in the Omnia Joint Purchasing Agreement.
Ford moves.
Ford
Leonard
moves.
seconds.
Leonard second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Item I, a resolution approving fee in lieu of detention for the Prairie Farm Drainage Project.
Ford moves.
Ford moves.
Burgess, second.
Sturgis second, discussion.
Jody, are these, Jody, are these all with your blessing?
Yes.
Perfect.
All right. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
And item J, a resolution approving a contract with Connolly Excavating Incorporated in the Church Molitor Drainage Project.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves.
Ford seconds.
Ford second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Item K, a resolution authorizing a contract with Integral Construction Incorporated for the construction of the Ogden Gardens Water Trust Water Storage Tank and Building. Martin moves. Martin moves. Ford second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Item L, a resolution authorizing a contract for drainage consultant services.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves. Sturgis seconds.
Burgess, seconds.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Berman, yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
thank you.
Page 2, item M. A resolution authorizing contracts providing 2022 dental, vision, and life insurance plans.
Burgess moves.
Leonard seconds.
Sturgis moved, Leonard second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Item N, a resolution authorizing Blue Cross Blue Shield as Kane County's group health benefit provider,
Burgess moves.
2022. Sturgis moves,
Leonard seconds.
Leonard second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
And item O, a resolution approving the 2022 monthly health and dental contribution.
Burgess moves.
Leonard seconds.
Sturgis moved, Leonard second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
And item P, a resolution canceling the 2021 annual employee wellness biometric screening due to COVID-19.
Burgess moves.
Sturgis moves,
Leonard seconds.
Leonard second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
And item Q, a resolution authorizing appointment of private placement agent for the sale of general obligation refunding bonds, alternate revenue source.
Leonard moves.
Ford second.
Ford second. Leonard moves. Everybody's got the resolution which was included.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
And item R, an ordinance authorizing the issues of not to exceed 9,750,000 general obligation revenue bonds, alternate revenue source of the county for the purpose of paying the costs refunding certain outstanding bonds in said county, providing for the pledge of certain revenues to the payment of principal and interest on the bonds, and for the levy of property taxes sufficient to pay such principal and interest if the pledged revenues are insufficient to make such payment, and providing for the sale of the bonds to the purchaser thereof.
Leonard moves.
Pepe seconds.
Leonard moves, Tepe second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Item S, a resolution approving of personal hiring, Kane County Division of Transportation, a ride-in Kane Program Coordinator.
Martin moves.
Mark moves,
Ford second.
Ford second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
And item T, a resolution approving of personnel replacement hiring, Kane County Division of Transportation, a highway maintainer.
Ford moves.
Ford moves,
Pepe seconds.
Tempe second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Item U, a resolution authorizing approval of personnel replacement hiring as needed for the building maintenance, building management and information technology department.
Ford moves.
Martin seconds.
Martin second, discussion.
Burgess, not entirely comfortable with the as needed language, but willing to vote yes. So,
Any other discussion? Duly noted. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Item V, a resolution approving the July 2021 claims paid.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves,
Ford second.
Ford second, discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I want to compliment you on not running out of the alphabet this month.
Good. Darryl.
You've been practicing.
Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Sturgis,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
pass.
And we have some additional business. Jody Walneck on Mill Creek.
Thank you. I sent out an email on Monday to the committee members regarding the Mill Creek SSA refuse and recycling contract. Due to timing, it won't be able to come back to Finance and Budget Committee. We would like to bring it to the September 1st Special E&E Committee and then directly to Executive Committee. We have Jennifer Jarlin online that will give some more background.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for squeezing this in here. Firstly, this is a contract that we do have done historically since the beginning of the special service area, Mill Creek. And we do this to provide the best cost, best service to the residents of Mill Creek for their curbside trash, recycling, and organics collection. And so it is not a cost to the county at all. The bill goes directly to the residents from the chosen contractor. And we extended that last year because of COVID for 1 year past the contract date. And so this is a new bid that has gone out. We have 4 bidders that have submitted. And because we were delayed in getting that bid out, because Blackberry Township has a proposed potential future referendum for franchised hauling of trash and recycling throughout the township unincorporated. And because of those discussions and the state's attorney's review of the situation, we ended up going out to bid later than expected. That's why we're crunched for time here at the end. Also because while this contract ends on October 30th, the board approval, if we don't do this special E&E meeting and run from there, it would be only 14 days for any new contractor to get in there and switch bins out and do all that. And they just need more time. So what we're hoping is that we can bring it to the Special Energy and Environmental Committee on the 1st and then run it from there to exec on the 8th and the board on the 14th, so that we have a good month and a half to do that transition. So what we're looking for from you today is just verbal confirmation from the Finance Committee that that's okay with you, that we can go in that order for board approval on the 14th of September.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're looking
Mr.
for a
Chairman,
consent-
Shepro?
Mr. Shepro?
Yeah, I would ask unanimous consent that the board take no action formally, but that endorses the timeline and procedural outlined by Ms. Wolnick and her colleague. That would require no motion or vote other than the absence of objection.
I don't feel we need a motion. I think all we need to do is ask if there's any objections to this. If
That's what
there
I
are
just did.
objections, we'll move ahead with it.
That's what I just said.
He said it.
Yeah, but Dale did it much more succinctly.
Move or make a motion to do that. I don't know.
No. I asked unanimous consent that without objection, the timeline outlined would proceed.
There we go.
You need a motion to ask for no motion?
No.
No. Oh my gosh. I withdraw.
Okay.
Do what you want.
We couldn't get through it without you having some comment anyway.
Yes.
All right.
Strike
I
it
have
from
no
the
old
minutes.
business. Do we have a motion to replace our reports on file?
So moved by Leonard.
Leonard move, Martin second. No discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin, Sanchez, Sturgis,
Sanchez, yes.
Tep- thank you. Tepe,
Happy yes.
Berman,
Yes.
passed.
To the best of my knowledge, we do not need an executive session.
I move for adjournment.
Did I hear a move for adjournment?
I move. Eat Kenyon.
All in favor, yeah.